October 14, 1943. Late morning over southern Germany. The sky is pale and cold, streaked with vapor trails. On the ground, factory sirens begin their long mechanical wail. Men and women step out from machine halls in Schweinfurt, looking upward into a sound they have never heard in such density. A deep, synchronized thunder that rolls from horizon to horizon. 291 American B-17s are crossing the main river valley, heading for the ball-bearing plants that feed the entire German war machine. Every aircraft moves in geometric formation, precise and relentless. The lead elements drop flares to mark the target. Anti-aircraft guns open in response, covering the city in black bursts. The pattern of explosions shows something new. The Americans are flying through it without deviation. German controllers track the incoming formations from Würzburg to Schweinfurt. Reports come faster than they can be written. Each wave contains hundreds of engines, each bomb group appearing before the last is passed. In the command bunker, staff officers compare maps. The scale seems wrong. They recalculate again and again. The numbers stay the same. By midday, the flak guns are overheating. Fragments of metal rain across the rooftops. Some crews cheer when a bomber falls, then watch 10 more appear behind it. The city center begins to burn. Within hours, the smoke column reaches 20,000 feet, visible all the way to the Alps. This is the second American strike on Schweinfurt in 3 months. The first had already destroyed half of the bearing capacity. The second completes the pattern. Despite heavy losses, the American formations maintained discipline, bomb on schedule, and turn for home. Still in formation, still intact enough to fight their way back across the Rhine. At headquarters in Berlin, the situation report is read aloud. Senior officers exchange brief glances but say little. Intelligence summaries from the Luftwaffe confirm what everyone senses. These are not isolated attacks. The American Air Force is operating in continuous rotation, one group returning to England as another takes its place. For the first time, the war planners see a scale of effort that no European power has ever achieved. The raids are not measured in sorties, but in cycles, a rhythm of production, fuel, and manpower that sustains itself without pause. The destruction over Schweinfurt is not simply an act of bombing. It is a demonstration. The German analysts estimate how long such pressure can last. Their models collapse under the data. Replacement rates in the American aircraft industry exceed total German monthly production of all aircraft types combined. The conclusion circulates quietly among technical officers. This is industrial warfare conducted as a system, not as a campaign. By evening, Schweinfurt is still burning. The factories lie in twisted grids of steel. Workers sift through rubble, gathering what can be used again. The air smells of oil and cordite. High above, condensation trails fade westward toward England. No one in the high command says it aloud, but the arithmetic is already visible. Germany can destroy hundreds, but America can build thousands. And every bomber that returns carries proof that distance is no longer protection. No one yet calls it defeat, but the shape of it has appeared. The fires of Schweinfurt fade into the night. Smoke drifts east across the fields, scattering into the high air currents that carry it out over Europe. In the hours that follow, German radio intercept stations pick up coded American transmissions, steady, methodical, routine. Each signal marks another unit reaching home base, refueling, rearming. For the first time, the rhythm of American warfare becomes measurable, precision without pause. Weeks earlier, in a small office within the Reich Air Ministry, a team of analysts had tried to understand how such an air armada could exist. Their data came from scattered sources, photographs of airfields in Britain, production reports from captured Allied equipment, and vague shipping numbers crossing the Atlantic. Even the most cautious estimate was impossible. No precedent existed for a nation producing war machines at that scale. German intelligence had long underestimated the industrial core of the United States. In 1941, the consensus described it as a merchant power, wealthy, inventive, but unprepared for sustained conflict. By 1943, that assumption collapses. Shipyards along the American coasts launch a new Liberty ship every few days. Detroit's assembly lines no longer produce cars. They produce engines, trucks, tanks, and bombers. A single plant at Willow Run turns out a B-24 every 63 minutes. From Europe, the reports seem implausible. Albert Speer demands verification, dispatching economic attachés and spies to neutral ports in Lisbon and Stockholm to measure imports of aluminum, oil, and steel. The numbers return consistent, millions of tons flowing monthly, all under the American flag. Production photographs from Life magazine, obtained through Swiss intermediaries, confirm what raw data suggests. Women at presses, conveyor belts stretching out of frame, men training in thousands. In the corridors of the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht, these discoveries unsettle the staff officers more than defeats on the front. Battles can be analyzed. This is something larger, a transformation of society into an engine. Every calculation they make presumes limits that the Americans do not appear to have. Within Germany, Speer attempts to replicate the model. He centralizes design, accelerates assembly, and introduces mass production methods. But Germany is trapped within its geography. Allied bombers cut rail lines. Oil fields in Romania shrink under attack. Raw materials arrive slower each month. The American system, fed by vast distance and untouched infrastructure, expands without interruption. By late 1943, the Luftwaffe begins reporting another problem: replacement. Each lost pilot, each destroyed aircraft takes months to replace. Across the Channel, the Americans replace entire groups in weeks. Their training fields in Texas, Arizona, and Kansas produce pilots faster than Germany can find fuel to fly them. Inside the high command, the tone of memoranda changes. Reports no longer speak of temporary setbacks. They speak of ratios, production per month, sorties per day, divisions per quarter. Mathematics replaces optimism. Every German innovation meets a larger American response. Radar countermeasures, improved bomb sights, new escort fighters with longer range. The pattern becomes clear: adaptation as policy. In a private conference, Speer presents a comparison of output. The chart shows 3 lines. Germany's peaks early in 1943, then declines. America's line begins low, then rises in an unbroken arc. No one speaks. The silence is not disbelief, but comprehension. The war has shifted from skill to scale. Across the Atlantic, the machinery runs day and night. Cities glow with factory light. The movement of trains, the pulse of generators, and the loading of ships all merge into one continuous operation. Soldiers embarking from New York or San Francisco step into a system that moves as if preordained. Each departure is already compensated for by another in preparation. What the German leadership begins to understand is that they are no longer fighting an army or even an alliance. They are fighting an industrial civilization. Every bomb dropped, every tank destroyed, is absorbed by an economy capable of recreating itself faster than destruction can diminish it. As winter sets in, German generals meet in darkened rooms, reviewing intelligence summaries under blackout curtains. The conclusions are consistent, but incomplete. They can measure American output, but not the will that drives it. What kind of nation sustains such momentum without coercion? And how long can it continue? The next proof will come not from numbers, but from the field itself. The question of will is answered first in Africa. Early 1943, Tunisia. Dust, heat, and the slow grind of a new army learning how to fight. The American forces, fresh and untested, enter the campaign against the veteran Afrika Korps. At Kasserine Pass, their lines break under concentrated German armor. Communications collapse, supply trucks clog the roads. To the German observers, it confirms what they expected: abundance without discipline. But in the weeks that follow, the pattern shifts. Command rotation brings in new leadership. Eisenhower consolidating command. Patton imposing order with mechanical precision. Logistics improve, coordination tightens. Air cover integrates with ground movement. What had been confusion becomes rhythm. The same troops who fled Kasserine now push forward through Gafsa, crossing minefields with improvised tactics copied from their opponents. German field reports begin to change in tone. Dispatches that once described Americans as poorly led and inexperienced start to note rapid adaptation and unlimited material support. Captured equipment confirms an unsettling fact: every destroyed tank or truck has an identical replacement. Serial numbers differ by 1 or 2 digits. Even the rations are standardized. The Americans are learning warfare as a process. By May, Axis forces in North Africa collapse under converging Allied pressure. Over 250,000 German and Italian troops surrender. Among them are officers who had once fought in France and Russia. They describe the campaign not as defeat in battle, but as exhaustion against a system that never stopped replenishing itself. In Berlin, the High Command files away the Tunisian campaign as an anomaly, the product of geography and Allied numbers. Yet behind the lines, the implications deepen. American troops are redeploying faster than expected. Divisions withdrawn from Africa reappear in England within weeks, fully equipped. The speed suggests not improvisation, but orchestration. The spring of 1944 brings the next test. The Wehrmacht prepares for an Allied landing somewhere along the western coast. Rommel fortifies the Atlantic Wall, arguing that the first hours of invasion will decide the war. He studies reports of American shipbuilding and troop strength, but still believes that the channel is a natural defense. No force can sustain such a crossing under fire. June 6th erases that belief. At dawn, the sea itself seems to move. Thousands of landing craft push through the surf, escorted by an armada that stretches beyond the horizon. The beaches erupt under artillery fire, yet the flow does not stop. Every destroyed vessel is replaced by another already approaching. Supplies, vehicles, and reinforcements arrive in synchronized waves. Within 24 hours, a bridgehead exists, not as a position, but as an expanding organism. German resistance is fierce, but fragmented. Communication lines severed by naval bombardment never recover. Divisions held in reserve await impossible orders. In the chaos, Luftwaffe reconnaissance manages brief photographs, endless rows of ships unloading trucks, tanks, fuel, and cranes. To Speer, examining the prints days later, it looks less like an invasion and more like the construction of a continent. By late June, American forces are operating from artificial harbors assembled on site. Prefabricated docks towed from England, anchored to the French coast. Under their steel arches, ships unload millions of tons of material with industrial efficiency. The beachhead transforms into a port city under constant movement, every crane mirrored by another in motion. For the German High Command, the event marks the end of assumptions. Every calculation of Allied capability proves conservative. Every expectation of collapse is met with reinforcement. Reports describe the battlefield as self-repairing. Where a front breaks, another forms. The generals debate causes: intelligence failure, timing, luck. But behind the arguments lies the same realization spreading through the officer corps. The Americans now fight as they build. Production has become strategy. By the time Normandy's hedgerows fall and the breakout begins toward Paris, the war's logic has reversed. Germany's armies retreat not only from enemy divisions, but from the pressure of a machine that outpaces destruction itself. The High Command still believes there is time to recover. The coming summer will prove how little time remains. By late summer 1944, the illusion of recovery dissolves. The Allies have broken out of Normandy, spreading across France in columns that move faster than the German command structure can follow. For every destroyed bridge, engineers raise a temporary one within hours. The front no longer moves as a line. It expands like a tide. In occupied cities, German staff officers abandon headquarters before dawn. Radios crackle with fragmented reports of armored divisions outflanked, supply convoys lost, airfields captured intact. The enemy's direction cannot be predicted because the enemy now moves in every direction at once. The Americans are not advancing. They are arriving. Above them, the air has changed. The sky, once patrolled by the Luftwaffe, now belongs to the 8th and 9th Air Forces. Daylight brings constant motion, bombers at altitude, fighters sweeping low, reconnaissance planes mapping every road. Entire German columns are destroyed before contact, erased by precision strikes from the air. What remains are wrecks, scattered along the routes once used for retreat. At Führer headquarters in East Prussia, daily situation maps shrink faster than they can be redrawn. Lines of red pencil cut deep into the Reich's borders. Hitler demands counteroffensives that no longer exist in reality. Rundstedt, summoned to report, studies the maps and sees what others refuse to say. The front is gone. He delivers his assessment in a single sentence. The war cannot be won. When asked what should be done, he answers without hesitation, "Make peace." His words never reach the troops. The machinery of command continues out of inertia, issuing orders disconnected from terrain. Speer, meanwhile, calculates the remaining capacity of German industry. His figures show depletion at every level: oil, steel, transportation. Yet what disturbs him most are the American production updates intercepted from open sources. New aircraft types appear monthly, new tanks quarterly. No nation in history has rearmed this quickly while already fighting a global war. By September, Allied aircraft fly missions with impunity. Railway yards, fuel depots, and even individual convoys are targeted from the air. The German Army's fuel reserves vanish faster than they can be measured. In some sectors, tanks are abandoned and used as static gun platforms. The air war that began as harassment has become paralysis. Within the high command, disbelief hardens into silence. Reports of American operations are so vast that they seem exaggerated, yet each day confirms them. Across the Channel, entire harbors are functioning as logistical cities: Cherbourg, Le Havre, Antwerp, feeding the advance toward the German border. Each one is a copy of the last, built on the same plan, operated with the same precision. Speer attends a conference on industrial survival. He presents comparative charts showing that the United States now produces more aluminum in 1 month than Germany will in a year. The data is verified by neutral sources. There are no objections. The discussion shifts to evacuation procedures, how to preserve engineers, archives, and skilled labor for whatever comes next. By winter, the Western Front burns through the Ardennes in one last counterattack. It achieves momentary surprise, then collapses under the weight of logistics. The Americans restore supply lines within days. The snow that had slowed movement becomes another demonstration of endurance. Heated vehicles, air-dropped fuel, mobile repair units. Each obstacle is absorbed into the system. Inside Berlin, the realization becomes impossible to avoid. Intelligence reports circulate privately among senior staff. The American Army is now operating at a scale no power can match, supported by factories that will not stop until victory is absolute. The numbers read like final verdicts: divisions counted in hundreds, aircraft in tens of thousands, ships beyond calculation. The war that began with maneuver and strategy has ended in arithmetic. For the first time, the High Command confronts a power beyond military comprehension, a nation whose strength lies not in conquest, but in continuity. When that truth finally settles, the only question left is how long Germany can exist within it. The arithmetic closes in by spring. The Ruhr is encircled. Western Germany lies under a haze of smoke and dust. American forces advance in lines so broad they resemble migration rather than maneuver. Cities surrender before fighting begins, their officials standing at crossroads with white flags and translated instructions for occupation. The speed of collapse no longer shocks anyone. It has become procedure. Inside the Reich Chancellery, the reports read more like inventory than warfare. Railways gone, oil fields gone, ammunition depots silent. Command posts receive orders they cannot execute. The German army now functions as fragments, small groups moving without air cover, without fuel, without illusion. Each surrender adds to a tide of captured men that flows westward in endless convoys of trucks. The American system follows them in. Engineering units repair bridges before the smoke clears. Supply trains roll forward within hours of arrival. Entire towns are converted into depots, hospitals, and command centers with practiced precision. The occupation seems less an interruption than a continuation of movement. The same machinery that built, supplied, and fought, now reshaping what it conquers. In the final weeks, remnants of the High Command relocate to the Harz Mountains in southern Bavaria, trying to maintain communication through underground cables. Speer continues calculating, still searching for a ratio that could imply endurance. The last figures arrive from reconnaissance. American factories are producing at peak capacity, even as their armies cross the Rhine. No society has ever fought at full strength this far into a war. When Allied bombers stop appearing over central Germany, it isn't mercy, it's completion. There are no remaining targets of value. The silence that follows is heavier than destruction. Civilians emerge into the open air, unaccustomed to daylight without sirens. The war has simply moved past them. On April 30th, Hitler is gone. His staff disperses in fragments across the country. Command devolves to officers who already know the outcome. Messages of surrender begin to circulate, cautiously at first, then openly. Entire divisions march into captivity under American supervision. The process is disciplined, almost administrative. In interrogation centers across Europe, captured generals face questions about their assessments of American power. Most speak candidly. Keitel describes the turning point as a realization that material superiority had become absolute. Jodl calls it a war against the impossible. Rundstedt remains silent except to confirm his own earlier warning that peace should have been sought a year before Normandy. Speer, awaiting trial, dictates a final memorandum on industrial warfare. He notes that the Americans waged war as a continuation of production, and that their factories represented a new form of strategy, one where the front line existed in every workshop and dockyard. They fought with systems, he writes, and every worker was a soldier. Across the Atlantic, the machinery begins to slow. Shipyards shift to civilian contracts. Assembly lines prepare to return to automobiles. Bomb plants convert to peacetime goods. The transition occurs without crisis. The same organization that fueled total war now absorbs peace as efficiently. For Germany, it is incomprehensible. Recovery is instinct, victory without exhaustion. In occupied towns, American soldiers hand out rations to civilians who once feared them as invaders. Children gather around trucks for chocolate and tins of milk. To the German observers, it feels like the end of one era and the start of another, though neither side names it. By summer, the camps are full, the documents signed, the flags changed. The maps on the walls of the last German offices are outdated artifacts. Yet beneath the paperwork, one truth remains unrecorded: that a nation built on movement was defeated by a nation that could not be stopped. The war ends quietly, but the question lingers. Was this victory of arms, or proof that in the modern age, power belongs to those who can build faster than destruction itself?